I showed you before. Now we went through what is CoWork. Second, the 5-step setup. And now let's go with the first example, organize the folders or the files in your machine. So I will be going into my Claude CoWork. I am already in my downloads. Just imagine in downloads, what do you have? You have all those downloading things, files, screenshots, all sorts of things. This is a nightmare, at least for me. I have so many things in my downloads folder. I want to ask Claude to organize my download folders. I will be organizing my messy download folder. I have written the prompt already. I will be going here and pasting here. What I'm saying, Claude CoWork, is scan my downloads folder and propose a plan to organize it. Categories and subfolders to create, how files should be sorted, type or date, naming conventions to apply, files to flag for deletion, show me the full plan before making any changes, only proceed after I confirm. I will just say, let's go.
Code.markdown file and starts generating LinkedIn posts done, Twitter threads done, email newsletter done, short form clip scripts with hooks done. Before CoWork, this took me 5 to 7 hours per video. Now it takes about 12 minutes. And I still added the output. I'm not telling you it's perfect. The LinkedIn posts usually need a strong opening line. The email newsletters sometimes miss the CTA placement I want. I fix those. Takes maybe 20 minutes of editing. But 5 to 7 hours down to 30 minutes total. That math works. 1 video per week, 52 weeks a year. That's 300 hours saved per year on one automation. We haven't even gotten to the other 2 yet. This is the one that directly makes money.
And remember, we want to change the folder. So we want to choose a different folder and create a new one. And this time I'm going to show you the plan mode here just to show you what that looks like here. Now, when you use the planning mode here, Claude will actually create a super detailed plan. You'll have things about colors. You'll have things about animations, the dashboard architecture, everything that it's going to do. Some of it is going to be technical, but some of it is worth looking at just to kind of get an idea of what it's going to do. Sometimes you could pick up on things that you may not want, maybe the colors you don't want, and you could follow that up with a revision. But right now, I'm just going to say approve this plan and start coding. But that is one benefit of using the planning mode. It will lay out the entire plan, both in plain English and also the technical aspects of it. Okay, we got ourselves a working dashboard over here. And let me go ahead and stretch this out. And it has different categories here. And the reason why Claude Code actually may take longer than other vibe coding apps, if you ever use the other ones, is because it tests its own work here. So it takes a screenshot, it does some testing. It actually was testing the different.
So what actually is Claude CoWork? Right now, there's a few different ways to use Claude on your computer, and it can get confusing fast. To get access to CoWork, you'll need to download the Claude desktop app, which you can do from claude.com/download. It's available on both Mac and Windows, and you'll need at least a Pro plan, which is $20 a month. Now, CoWork is currently a research preview feature only available in the Claude desktop app, not on the web or mobile experience. Once you've got the desktop app installed, you're going to see 3 modes at the top: Chat, CoWork, and Code. Now, there's also a 4th way to use Claude Code CLI, which runs in your terminal. They all use the same underlying models, but they're built for different jobs. Claude Chat, aka regular Claude, or the Claude that you're most used to seeing, is your planning and brainstorming space. CoWork is essentially Claude Code built for non-technical users. It runs locally on your computer, accessing your files, executes tasks end-to-end without you touching a terminal. Now, Claude Code Desktop and the CLI are for developers who want even more control, but we're not going there today. For this video, we're living in CoWork. Now, unlike a regular Claude chat where you ask questions, it responds back, you go back and forth, in CoWork, you describe what you want done, and Claude goes and does it. Reading files, creating documents, building spreadsheets with formulas, organizing folders, and even browsing on the web on your behalf. Now, when you open CoWork, it'll prompt you to choose a folder on your computer where it's allowed to work. CoWork runs inside a sandboxed environment with
top, and you'll now see projects over here on the left. You can think of each project as a self-contained workspace centered around a specific goal or topic. Here, for instance, I have a project called Research. Selecting this will then open up the project. The first thing I want to draw your attention to are all the recent chats right here that I started from within this project. This helps you keep everything organized because in the past, all your tasks appeared here under recents, and there was no way to organize them. But now, whenever you start a new task from within a project, they'll all appear right here. But to think of projects as just a folder management system would be a huge mistake, because projects are so much more powerful than that. First, because every project over here on the right has a section to give it a custom set of instructions. You can also set up tasks to run from within each project on a schedule. And in addition to that, we have this context section. This shows you all the files that this project has access to. Here it has access to a folder on my computer called research. And within that are several subfolders. And within these subfolders are some more subfolders and files as well. And then finally, each project has a project-wide memory system. If you want Claude to remember something inside a project, just tell it and it'll add it to the memory section. Let's set up a project together so you can understand how to...
Up is CoWork. So to be very frank, I don't use CoWork a lot because all of the work that CoWork can do, technically Claude Code can also do. CoWork is something which is more helpful or more suitable for people who are not very tech savvy or don't understand code a lot. Right? This is where CoWork would be useful. So for your non-technical colleagues or your friends who are not into tech, that is where CoWork is actually something which is really good. So let me give you an example of CoWork, how this would work generally, right? So I've given it access to this folder of statements, which includes my company's bank statements, right? From the last few months. What I can do is that I can ask it, can you go through all the statements and figure out the biggest expense? No numbers, please. You are live on YouTube right now, right? And make sure you're selecting Opus 4.6 again, as it's the most capable model. And CoWork, what it can do is it can do a bunch of these things, like it can invoke commands, it can invoke things which can read and write inside your folder that you have given it. Chat, on the other hand, does not do that right now. And you can see it gave me a bunch of these lines over here, the single biggest expense category, all of your statements, it's contractor payment, then payroll, vendor payment.
Memory built into it. So like you can message it, you can start new sessions, and it'll actually remember something from 7 days ago. And as you use it, it gets better. Or at least in theory, as you use it, it gets better. Well, Claude's kind of rolling out some similar features with an auto memory feature so that as you use Claude Code, so Claude Code now remembers what it learns across many sessions. And so now these coding agents that are becoming general agents are getting better memory, which is something that I think many people want, especially for general tasks. This one's pretty fun. You can actually use voice mode directly in the terminal version of Claude Code. So if you see here, you can go /voice, and now you can hold space to speak. And then you can speak and say refactor the authentication middleware, and it will send that in so you can use your voice. Here, directly from the terminal, you can create scheduled tasks. And so you can schedule a daily code review. So every day on a schedule, you can get it to review your code. And this is a fun final one. This is the last feature announcement that we'll talk about. You can, in Claude Code, you can type /BTW. And what this will allow you to do is
more thing before we build. Before I add one more thing, let's go ahead and take a look what it has already here. We have a research plan workflow. And if I scroll through, I can see there's some files that are going to be created. And remember, once we accept it, to keep an eye over on Explorer here, because you're going to see it get created. It's going to go ahead and create this research report.md. As I go down, step 2, confirm the plan, 3, research, 4, write the report, 5, save the output. It gave me some formatting. So if I like everything here, I could go ahead, yes, and auto accept, or yes, manually approve, or keep planning. But what I'm going to say is this. I also want the report to include a section at the end with key takeaways and recommendations for the next step. So I'm just going to put that in and hit enter. So it's going to update the plan. It doesn't
do it really intuitively. And here's where things get interesting. Combining Stitch with Claude Code, an AI coding agent, which I personally believe is the best that's out there, that lives directly within your terminal. You might be thinking, why not just use Claude to generate the front ends directly? And yeah, you can, but the thing is, first, Claude models are not that solid at front end. If you take a look at the Opus model, it may generate something visually appealing, but in my experience, they're still not on the same level as Gemini when it comes to designing qualitative visual components. Secondly, Stitch is completely free. It is something that is used purposely for designing. It gives you way more control visually, especially when it comes to features like live editing, annotations, and component level adjustments. So instead of just forcing Claude to design and code everything, you can split the workflow. You can use Stitch to get high quality pixel perfect visual foundations. Then you can have it so that you can take the design system and then feed it into Claude Code with the components that you had generated with Stitch. There, Claude can then turn your static design into real code, add interactivity, connect backend logic, and actually build out a full application. So in essence, you can use Stitch to perfectly craft the UI, like recreating a dark mode or a neon green crypto dashboard like you saw. And then what it will do is it will feed it into Claude Code to
authorize and complete a quick verification. After that, we'll name our cloud environment, select Trusted for network access, and then click Create and Finish. And that's the entire setup done. Now to continue with our headphones example, we'll change our model to Opus 4.6 and then click Select a repository to connect to the repository that we just created. Then we'll upload both of our product images and fill in this prompt, which is designed to create a high-end e-commerce store that features our interactive slider element between our two images. Once Claude Code has completed its response, we can see what it created by heading back to our GitHub repository, clicking on the file it made, downloading it, and then opening it in our browser. The final result is exactly what we asked for. We have a beautiful storefront, and as I drag my mouse across the Hero section, an X-ray scanner seamlessly reveals the internal tech of the headphones. It's buttery smooth, highly interactive, and makes the product look incredibly premium. That's how to stand out on a product page. But what if you want to stand out with a cinematic landing page? Well, for our second example, we're going to build a high-end motion graphic where an AI video plays inside of massive typography and then drops you into a sleek company vision section. To generate the best video possible, we'll use Nano Banana 2 to create our start frame. So we'll head back over to Higgsfield and keep all of our previous settings the same, but this time we'll use this JSON prompt to create a first-person shot of us flying down a cyberpunk street. This is exactly what we were aiming for. Now we'll click Animate and enter our video prompt where we want to start flying down the center of the cyberpunk street. We'll make sure Prompt Enhance is off. Our model is
to the event in the calendar, again in the application, not using the API connection, and updates the users. Another thing here, start a dev server, so a local server to check something if things are working. So he launches Claude Code. He's not connected yet. He launches Claude Code. This runs the local server and checks here if the application is working as expected and sends a screenshot to mobile. And this is where I say goodbye OpenClaw, because to me it was amazing using OpenClaw back then to see also the images coming up and so on from my local file. And this is actually also the moment I can imagine now using my Mac Mini that I have in addition here already to really install only Claude and set up a fully agentic system. If you're interested to see how I'm doing this, make sure to subscribe if you haven't already, because that's what we will see me doing in the coming weeks for sure. Then here, or when there are 150 photos to process. This is amazing because obviously we've been always able with Claude Code to process images because it just creates a simple application to process these things. But the difference here again, there are all these images on desktop. It opens up Pixel Forge, which is a photo editing application, and it actually crops the images according to how it should get done and does it for all of them. This is so crazy, guys, and adds this now to the exports folder. And here they are, done 133 photos added to our.
Hit enter and proceed. Another thing to notice, because we're using cursor and this would also happen on VS Code, is that now things that have changed in the project are highlighted. So right now we have new folders like .agents and .claude, and it's basically the same thing. Claude is going to use this folder and agents is going to be used by cursor. The reason why it's duplicated is because cursor detected that we run this command and they also want to use the skills not only with Claude, but maybe you want to use a different agent, so that's why it's duplicated, but that's fine, don't worry too much about it. But this is the skill. You can click on it, you can see that these folders are new. That's why they are different color, and you can press on the skill.markdown and learn more about the guidelines and all the things here. All right, so now we're ready to start Claude within the project. So let's just say Claude, hit enter, and let's out.
Okay, and then what it's going to do is start researching the topic, check for existing remotion projects, etc. In my case, I have Perplexity MCP, so it's going to use that for research, but for you, it's probably going to use just the normal web search, which is fine. For this, you do not need a video to start with. AI is going to make the video completely from scratch. Okay, So now what it's going to do is research it. The topic is about AI agents. After a minute or two, it's going to give you a storyboard. Now, a storyboard is like scene by scene. Here's what the headline's going to be. Here's the text. Here's the visual. And this is the opportunity for you to make any revisions or edits. If you don't like this hook that it's using, you can change it. You can give feedback. If you don't like some of the ideas here for the visuals, you can give feedback as well. Okay, so it's probably thinking. This takes a couple minutes because it's...
All right, here's what happened. Claude read and searched our code base. It analyzed our architecture and drafted an implementation plan. But it hasn't changed any code yet until we approve the plan. So let's go over the plan real quick. The overview says add ability to delete transactions by adding a delete button to each row in the transaction list. Great. Now here are the changes that Claude is suggesting. So in app.jsx, it wants to add a function called
table of contents. That's not marketing, that's what they actually wrote. So let's talk about what just happened, because if you've been following OpenClaw, you know how fast this thing moves. And 3.22 just shifted gears again. The headline feature is ClawHub. ClawHub is OpenClaw's new plugin marketplace. Think of it like an app store, but for AI agents, right? So you type one command, you search for a skill, you install it, done. Your agent just learned a new trick. Before this, adding new abilities to your AI agent was messy. You were digging through NPM packages, hunting GitHub repos, figuring out configs. It worked, but it still felt like assembling furniture with no instructions. Now, one command, search, install, done. ClawHub is now the default install source. So when you run the install command, OpenClaw checks ClawHub first before anything else. NPM is still there as a backup, but the marketplace comes first. That's not a small thing. That's OpenClaw saying we are a platform right now, not just a tool. Think about what happened when Apple launched the App Store in 2008. The iPhone was already successful, but the App Store is what turned it into something you just couldn't put down. Developers built on top of it. The whole thing
Cool tutorial on how to set things up. If you watched the previous tutorial, you would have already had your first agent set up. So here's my agent Neo. In this case, it's the demo version, of course, my main Neo. I'm not going to show you guys that. But in this case, you can see he asks the starting question. So, hey, I just came online. We give him a name and we go ahead and tell him how to act and behave and so forth, right? Now, in this tutorial, I'm actually going to show you a bit more in depth to other tutorials that I've seen online, because I think understanding what's going on under the hood is going to allow you to be much better at using OpenClaw. So in this case, let's just dive into what's happening under the hood so we can understand how multi-users work when we start doing that. First things first, I added something to memory just as a test. Okay, so Neo now has remembered something in his notes. So if we look into the files, so what I've done here is I've just SSH'd into the actual server, and we can see we have an OpenClaw folder, and then we click inside, and our workspace, your main agent, this is where he lives. Okay, so in this case, if we see this, we have a workspace, and then you've got all of the important files. Now, the ones that you want to pay attention to are, the first thing is identity, right? This is what name we've given it. So in this case, Neo, cool and quirky personal assistant, and you can go ahead and customize it a bit more. Okay. Now the next one, so.md. This is what gives it essentially its soul, its personality, how it talks. You can go ahead and explain to Neo, or whatever you decide to call your agent, what you want it to be like, and chances are it'll probably change it in the soul. But if you change it here, it's going to actually have a deeper impact, as opposed to, let's say, if it was saved as a memory and then it's kind of clashing between its soul and memory, if that makes sense. Okay, so we just saved something to memory. So if we look into this, you can see they actually say
this is a beginning of a completely new category of software. Okay, so what makes OpenClaw different from every AI chatbot that you've had before? So think about it this way: most AI tools are like a brilliant friend. So you can only text, you ask, and then you like have the answer back. That's it. But OpenClaw is different. OpenClaw is an AI agent, meaning it doesn't just answering your question. It takes real-world action into your behalf. So there's three things that make it fundamentally different. The first one is it comes to you. OpenClaw doesn't live in another tab. It lives inside the tools you use like every day, like WhatsApp, Telegram, Discord, or iMessage. So you message it like texting a coworker. Okay, secondly, it actually does things. A regular chatbot gives you answer, and OpenClaw take action. It can browse website, read your files, send emails, schedule posts, run research, and like manage your calendar. And that's the difference between conversation and execution. And the third and finally, it has like persistent memory, like OpenClaw store what it learned about you in a local markdown file. Short-term memory logs today's section. Long-term memory like store in a file called memory.
So what we are going to do in this particular video, first of all, we'll be using OpenClaw. Before, when we used to probably install OpenClaw, by default, OpenAI GPT configuration will be there where you have to provide the OpenAI API keys. But we are not going to use this, okay? Instead, we will be using Ollama. Ollama, with the help of Ollama, I will be installing open source LLM models, which are pretty much good, okay? For my repetitive task, I will be able to do this, okay? And everything I will be hosting in my local, right? And since I do not shut down my system, this will be running continuously. As I showed you, every morning, 9 a.m., I get those kind of news, everything as such, okay? So this is what we'll do. First of all, we will try to set up Ollama. And with the help of Ollama, we will be able to set up OpenClaw also, okay? So first of all, what I will do, I will go ahead and I will search for Ollama. Understand why Ollama is basically used. It is the easiest way to probably use any kind of open source models. So first of all, the first instruction over here you'll be able to see. Either you can download Ollama like an exe file. So if you download it and if you install it, it looks something like this. So here you will be able to see this. And here you can see I've installed this all models, right? Multiple models, DeepSeek, Qwen, this is all min-max. Every model has been installed in my local. I have a good high system configuration with 128 GB RAM, amazing GPU. So I keep on doing multiple things over here. And soon I'm also planning
how to set up your main brain model and cheaper muzzle agents so they work together without breaking your configuration. Trust me, OpenClaw breaks when you do this wrong. I'll show you the right way. Chapter 3 is token optimization, the 8-layer stack that can take your monthly AI spend from $150 down to $10. Killing thinking mode, capping context, model routing, session discipline, prompt caching, heartbeat to Ollama, sub-agent isolation. Each one stacks on the last. Chapter 4, security. And the one everyone's ever seen before here.
Exactly. And that's why we're really trying to give folks, not just a like final polished agent and saying like, here's our CLI, just install it and like go. We're giving folks like a whole SDK. So we have the OpenHand Software Agent SDK, which is, basically all the nuts and bolts you would need to piece together your own agent and to decide how you want to drive that agent forward. So we've seen folks build all sorts of cool stuff by taking our SDK and like really building the developer experience that they want for themselves or for their company. I've basically built my own OpenClaw or Perplexity computer using the OpenHands SDK. I have my own VM running in the cloud that has my own kind of developer setup. It's got a whole like vibe coded interface that I built myself. It's a great time to be building custom software right now. It's a great time to be building the solution that works, particularly well for you rather than getting something that just works out of the box. And our goal with OpenHands is to really give you the raw components, the nuts and bolts you would need to build those things.
I'll quote some of my friends. Since last Friday, we got cloud tasks, projects and CoWork, DOM selection, effort and skills, some Claude Code updates, computer use, Claude Code schedule cloud, Claude Code channels permission prompts, Claude Code channels for teams and enterprise. And well, this chart only went through the 24th. We've even got more since then. We also got the ability to use tools like Figma Design, Canvas slides, Amplitude dashboards from your mobile phone with Claude. And we got auto mode for Claude Code. Now let me sort of zoom in for a minute and talk about some of the releases that I think are more impactful to the most amount of people, because it's a lot and most of them are for coders. However, this one here felt pretty significant. Put Claude to work on your computer. With this feature that rolled out on the 23rd, in Claude CoWork and Claude Code, Claude can use your computer to point, click, and complete tasks. So you can actually give Claude the ability to manipulate your computer, your mouse and your keyboard now. And since last week, they rolled out this dispatch feature, combining the ability to use your computer with this dispatch feature on your phone is really powerful because you can be like away from your house and you could need your computer to go and, do some work on your behalf. And you can just sort of text your computer to go and do something for you. And it will actually click around and move your mouse and handle that situation for you. Okay, so here I have the Claude app open on my computer. Now, in order to use this computer use plan, I believe you need to be on one of their paid plans, so at least like their $20 a month plan. But if you're paying
of effort. And the problem to be solved without a harness is that an AI agent might try to one-shot an entire app build in a single go. It might run out of context halfway through. It might leave work half finished and undocumented. Or it might declare that the job was done early just to finish up. So Anthropic's original solution was a two-part system, an initializer agent that set up the environment and broke the project into features. It then created a progress tracking file, and then a coding agent worked one feature at a time, committing to Git after each chunk, and then it would leave clear artifacts for the next coding agent to take over. So that way you're decomposing the work, you're making incremental progress, and you're handing off context cleanly. And it's fair to say that Anthropic were not the first to come up with this idea of long-running agent harnesses. Jeffrey Huntley came up with the Ralph Wiggum loop a few months before, which essentially allows you to run an agent within a loop and to check the output against something that can't actually lie. So that could be a linter or a type checker, and it essentially keeps the loop progressing until it's done. So having these explicit stop conditions means that you can loop over and over with an agent to really make sure that it's actually finished the job. And then that gets more powerful if you bundle it with the likes of spec-driven development. So frameworks like BMAD or SpecKit or OpenSpec allow you to create structured requirements before the actual dev begins. And that way the agent isn't looping in isolation, it's working against a predefined plan. So these frameworks solve the problem of an agent underscoping the work to be done. But outside of external hard validation, it is the
power tool that fails silently is very dangerous, and that is a world we are headed to. The best tools we have for managing that danger, I want to say this very, very plainly, are human brains and human brains crafting evaluations. Not better prompts, not bigger context windows per se, but human judgment about what matters, what's fragile, and what the AI doesn't know it doesn't know. And yes, evals help to encode that judgment, but in the vast majority of cases, the correct solution is really, really good human judgment plus really, really good evals. And I don't see enough of that investment. And this video is about the enormous risk that real experienced developers run into when they don't pay attention to that. Yes, I have a killer story for you on this. And they also have a paper that nobody is paying attention to that actually measures the ability of agents to do long-term work, like maintain a code base for most of a year. And we have results on that. And yes, I'll be telling you all about it. But first, 2 weeks ago, an AI coding agent wiped out a production database. 1.9 million rows of student data gone in seconds. The backups disappeared too. The agent never, ever made a technical error. Every action was logically correct. It simply had no idea it was demolishing a live system, because the knowledge that distinguished real infrastructure from temporary copies
matter. It doesn't take down the whole system or corrupt some shared memory bank.
Yeah.
The next request just gets routed to a different healthy clone. It's incredibly resilient for isolated tasks.
But if you actually want to build a coding assistant or a support bot that doesn't drive users crazy, you need the second brain, the stateful session-based model.
The elephant.
The elephant remembers. It recalls what you asked it 3 prompts ago and builds on that context. But managing that memory in a cloud environment introduces a lot of headaches, doesn't it?
Oh, it changes your entire
collaboration. So guys, CrewAI focuses on orchestrating multiple agents that can work together in parallel, passing tasks between the agents. And here, if you see these flows, they offer flow-based architectures where agents follow a sequence of steps triggered by specific conditions or events, as we have discussed. And they also have the state management thing, which ensures that the agent remembers the context or data between the steps, which enables them to work efficiently in complex scenarios. And all of these processes are event-driven execution, means it is going to trigger actions based on the specific events or inputs from users or external systems. And you have finer precision control. You use control flows, for example, like conditional logic, loops, or branching to manage how agents proceed through tasks. One more way to understand this way, let's say if there are a team of agents which are working on customer support automation system problem, where let's say one agent is handling ticket creation, another agent is processing queries, third is escalating issues if necessary. So all of this is possible, and you can easily execute this with CrewAI. Now let us look at LangChain, how LangChain is different from CrewAI. So guys, LangChain is also a framework that is designed for building applications that involve language models, particularly the large language models, or we call as LLMs.
Do with your agents is you really want to set up a way to kind of evaluate the quality of the prompts that you're giving them. And this is really like a new field that a lot of people it hasn't been figured out yet. We'll be building more tools in Paperclip for helping you do that. But really how a lot of people just do it practically is when it does something you don't like, you come in here and you say rule like make sure you remember to set, like if it's forgetting to set like a win condition, like make sure you set like a success condition for every task and ask the developer to have QA review it, right? Like I might be using this and I realize he never defines what success looks like and he never asks QA to review it. And I'll literally just like add that line in here and then save it. And then, typically you'll get a bit better results. Which, by the way, I think is something that we should have our CEO do. So I'm going to ask him to hire a QA person to help review the work. So that's another thing.
Work within their organizations. So with the panel, we're going to explore what shared accountability and responsible AI really looks like. So not just in theory, we've moved past, or we should be moving past, a compliance-based checkbox exercise, but we're looking what responsibility looks like in design practice. So the day-to-day realities, the decisions that teams make, the governance that keeps everyone aligned, the transparency that builds trust, and the ethical principles that show how we use trust in sustainable ways. I am going to Janine opened talking a little bit about the GSMA roadmap, and I just want to take you through a little bit just to set some context again for the panel. The roadmap, I guess, asks organisations to take a holistic view. So to consider societal impact, legal requirements, stakeholder impact, and ethical values. And when we can embed these principles into our systems and our organisations, we can reduce risk and actually create better outcomes. So our maturity roadmap was designed to do exactly this. It's a framework that enables organisations, not just telecommunications operators, but organisations across the ecosystem, to move from good intentions to actually being able to articulate.
Is asking for my account balance, right? And then it's saying that everything is really good. So you have 100%, I can trace it, accountability, because I'm just showing my account balances. There's no consequences. And then the trust boundary is very high because it's still single. It's not touching any other entities, right? And then if you look at, say, the Bedrock prompt I used for this particular, it's a system prompt, right? I'm just saying that analyze based on a scale of 1 to 5 on all these interactions, okay? And then what Bedrock does is basically it uses this kind of a reasoning to kind of give me that score. Okay, it's saying that banking system maintains complete audit logs of all the account access with timestamps, so we're good there. And then it basically gives you the similar interaction with everything, right? And then all of this is basically logged in. Right now we are logging in DynamoDB, so at least even on the agent side, we are keeping track of what a particular agent is doing. Okay, right now this agent is doing a TAC evaluation. Okay, and then let's see how this will change.
Amplify human capabilities, but if we aren't careful, it can also be a risk amplifier. So let's take a look at the top 10 list of vulnerabilities for AI agents according to OWASP. Number 1 on their list, agent goal hijack. Agent goal hijack occurs when an attacker manipulates what an agent is trying to achieve, not just what it says. Agents can't reliably distinguish instructions from content, which means that hidden prompts in documents, in emails, or web pages can silently redirect planning and execution. Once the goal shifts, the agent behaves correctly, but toward the wrong objective. Number 2 on the list, tool misuse and exploitation. Agents have the potential to misuse legitimate tools that they're authorized to use. Overprivileged access, ambiguous instructions, or unsafe chaining can lead to data loss, exfiltration, or costly actions without any exploit. The risk comes from autonomy combined with weak guardrails. That's a bad combination. Number 3, identity and privilege abuse. Agentic systems frequently operate without a clearly governed identity. Agents inherit user credentials, trust other agents by default, or reuse cached access, enabling privilege escalation and confused deputy attacks. Without task-scoped, time-bound permissions, least privilege breaks down. Number 4.
Based on things you might need. All right, so that's a couple of examples of working with code and LangChain4j. I'll give the repo at the end, but I do want to talk about safety as well for open models, because if you go to a place like Hugging Face, which I'll show in a second, they don't include content filtering or any kind of safety built in. You have to add your own. So once again, that router or that orchestrator on top is really important. And you can add safety in your input guardrails and your output guardrails. So when you put the query into the large language model, you want to check for prompt injection. You want to check for jailbreak attempts, things like that. These are things that are generally part of a commercial large language model out there. They've all got safety and evaluation tools built in before the query gets to the large language model, just to filter out anything that it doesn't want to work with. Then output guardrails. Is the response that you've got somehow offensive or breaking rules or anything that you don't want returned from your large language model as well? So you evaluate the input and the output all the time. LangChain4j has a moderation model. So moderate is the tool command, and you can just use
integration challenges. And on top of that, as we talked about earlier, we need to think about the business processes and context to which these serve, as well as what the experiences of the employees in the enterprise are as well. And the capabilities we have to establish, let's say, for example, a control plane for agents, allows us to treat an agent, for example, as an entity in the enterprise architecture that has its own ID, that has its own controls, that respects boundaries on operational processes and data. And that sort of control plane, for example, is one element among many of ways that we can help create that level of security and observability, and then navigate toward the process outcomes as well as the employee experience that really benefits the companies that we're working with in a substantive way.
I always like it when you give us customer examples.
Enhance my TypeScript when I write these features. This first one is a huge favorite of mine, and this is no unchecked index access. And we're going to be setting this to true. And essentially what this does, if we scroll all the way to the very bottom, we'll see an example of this. I have an array right here called numbers. And this numbers array is 1, 2, 3. And then I'm trying to access a value from that array. For example, I want to get the element at the 10th index, so the 11th element, and then convert it to a string. Normally, it would give me an error if I don't have this setting enabled, and I come over here, you're going to notice it's not going to give me any warnings or errors at all, even though technically my code will give me an error when it runs because there is no 11th element. The whole idea behind no unchecked index access is that what it's going to do is anytime you try to access the index of an array, doesn't matter if you're accessing the first element or if you're accessing a massive element way later in your array, it's going to assume that that element could be undefined because it doesn't know if your array has 3 elements, if it has no elements inside of it, for example, here, if it has a million different elements in it, it has no idea to know, so it always assumes that undefined is a valid option. I like having this enabled because it, again, gives me extra type safety because it's very easy to say, oh, I'm going to get the 4th index element out of my array and I'm going to convert it to a string. But if your element or your array doesn't have that many elements, this will give you an error and TypeScript won't actually show it to you. So I like to enable this working with my arrays just to give me a little extra type safety. It does add a very small amount of additional code that I have to write because now I have to make sure that I do an optional check here with that question.
I want you guys to type climb in the chat right now, plus your city and where you're coming to us from. It's going to be a fantastic show. I see you all in the chat. I saw you guys in the chat chatting it up. Well, I was getting prepared for the show. Saw you guys in the Discord as well. Now, before I get into all of it, I want to say something. Yesterday in this community, I asked a question. How many months could you cover your expenses if the income stopped on tomorrow? The most common answer in that chat was 2 months. That number is why today's show matters. And here's what the Goldman Sachs data confirmed this week. AI is responsible for 5,000 to 10,000 net job losses per month in the most exposed industries in America. That is not a projection. That is a backward look.
Engineers they've fired, they're bringing them in to fill out these new AI utilization roles so that AI can be used more to make more AI. Then once they have the AI maker team make more AI tools, they mandate the use of an internal one called Kiro, as well as a couple other systems as we talked about, such as Q, their other AI assistant. They then mandate that you must use this in order to get a good raise for the year. So people use it everywhere because everybody wants to make more money, which is understandable. And then they have a bunch of outages, which lose them a bunch of money. So what do you do in this situation? If you're in technical leadership, I can tell you what I have done in the past is do a larger root cause analysis on what is causing this. No egos involved, no personal agendas involved, just figure.
Hello and welcome to the Oprah Podcast. Artificial intelligence is woven into the fabric of our daily lives, but there are so many experts, and maybe you too, who have concerns, grave concerns, some people do, about its unchecked power, while others are optimistic that it's going to transform our lives for the better. It already has for many of us. So what do you think? Well, there's a new
yet bleeding together. So we have artificial intelligence, we have prediction markets, we have crypto, all of this is very exciting. But how do you look at these technologies? Do you try to fit them all into one set of rules, or is there like a certain set of rules you guys look at when it comes to artificial intelligence, certain set for prediction markets, certain set for crypto?
I think these are some of the most transformative technologies that we've seen. They're really generational technologies. I'm excited to be at the forefront, leading the CFTC to help develop rules for them. And I don't think those rules should be uniform across all these technologies. It's not one size fits all. We need purpose fit rules that make sense, but they also need to be merit neutral. We can't be saying, AI is fine, but crypto is not, or prediction markets don't make sense, but we like crypto. So we're trying to take an approach of making sure that our rules are consistent, coherent, rational, but tailored to the technology. And I do think that these technologies really are synergistic. So we've got blockchain rails that are a response to some of the debanking, the Operation Choke Point 2.0, the tendency of government to take our assets. We saw it with, the gold in the early days, right? The government was able to confiscate that. And so having the ability to self-custody your assets, engage on chain freely, censorship resistant blockchain rails are terrific. Prediction markets are a response to a lot of the gatekeepers in the media where they were putting out fake polls, fake news reports. You can check that with the ability to put assets at stake, skin in the game, and really take a position on a future
device on the market, but an attempt to change the very logic of human interaction with technology. And although its realization is still far away, it is already clear that the race for the future of personal devices has officially begun. And in this race, not only companies will participate, but entire technological ecosystems, each trying to become the foundation of a new digital reality. As this race gains momentum, it becomes obvious that this is no longer just about a technological product, but about control over the next level of interaction between humans and the digital environment. Because whoever creates the first truly mass and convenient AI device will effectively gain access to the most valuable resource of the modern era, user attention and real-time data. According to analysts from Morgan Stanley and ARK Invest, the market for personal AI devices, if successfully launched, could exceed $1 trillion within the next 10 to 15 years, automatically making it one of the main targets for the largest technology corporations. And this is where Elon Musk's strategy begins to look even more large-scale. According to sources, xAI may not limit itself to releasing a single device, but could build an entire product line that will function as a unified system connected through Grok. These could include pocket devices, wearable gadgets, integration into Tesla vehicles, as well as a potential connection with Starlink.
You can now easily create any sort of full stack application where you can add a database and authentication linked to Firebase, or you have the ability to integrate various sorts of third-party services. But you can essentially just prompt anything and the Google AI Studio will fully build it out using state-of-the-art models. You can tweak the configurations where you can select these state-of-the-art models like the Gemini 3.1 Pro, and you can even select the framework. This is a really cool option if you want to work with different sorts of frameworks. So for example, when I'm prompting to build something, I can give it my prompt like to create a CRM dashboard. Then you can select these different presets to add into your app. So say if you want to just start off by building the backend services, you can click on add a database and authentication. But essentially, these are different templates that you can readily add into your application that you're trying to create with the build mode. So since I selected the database and authentication service that I want to add to my application, you'll need to enable this to store the data from your app using Firebase. And once that's enabled, it will add in this template directly into your CRM application. There we go. Looks like our CRM dashboard has been fully coded out, as well as a backend system that has been linked. You can see that you can now sign in with Google. So if I'm to sign in, it will prompt open another window where I can sign up or sign in with Google. So I've signed up with my account, and this is...
Structure is what makes the whole workflow seamless. Integrations can be requested conversationally. Payment systems, email services, and external tools don't require deep technical configuration. Deployment doesn't require DevOps knowledge, and publishing is built right into the platform, which means professional deployment just happens without needing to understand servers or infrastructure management. And beyond infrastructure, the intelligence layer is what truly separates Base 44. The AI maintains.
This whole update is what Google is calling the anti-gravity coding agent. This is the thing doing the heavy lifting under the hood. And the big shift here is that it doesn't just write code anymore. It understands your entire project, the structure, the chat history, what you built 3 sessions ago. So when you come back and say add a leaderboard to the game I was building, it actually knows what game you are talking about. It's not just starting from scratch every single time. That is a pretty meaningful change if you've been frustrated by AI tools losing context mid-project. Now, the feature that's going to get the most attention is the Firebase integration. And here's how it works. When the agent detects that your app actually needs a database or a user login, it flags it and asks if you want to set one up. You approve it, and it automatically provisions Cloud Firestore for your database and Firebase authentication for sign-in. That's it. You don't have to write a single line of back.
He's a back-end brain. It's incredible at logic, functionality, and structure, but when it comes to design, that's not what it's built for. And you've been asking it to do both. Stitch handles the design side completely. You build the look in Stitch, you hand the code over to Claude Code, and it then builds the product around it. But Stitch doesn't just give you a design, it auto-generates a design.md file, your entire design system in a one markdown document. Colors, typography, spacing rules, component guidelines. Drop it into your project once, and Claude Code has a designer's brain baked into every prompt that it runs. For every screen, page, and element that you prompt. That's the part that should worry designers. Now, if you want to copy our entire workflow and the prompts, then what you need to do is check out our free school community. There are currently over 19,000 members already there, and you should be one of them. The link is down in the description. But right now, let's explain what is Stitch, okay? So, you may be asking, what exactly is Stitch?
Bad. But really, the true crime comes with Copilot. If you're not familiar with Copilot, Copilot has a long and rich history. It first started off on GitHub. So this is like 2022, late 2022, maybe October. And GitHub releases Copilot. It is this autocomplete inliner that you can be able to write code significantly faster by having it. And honestly, it was a pretty wild time. This was a lot of programmers' kind of first introduction into the ChatGPT series. And of course, unlike today, AI wasn't hyped or just insane. See, in 2023, people had really reasonable and normal takes. They weren't saying things like, it's so over, or AI is gonna take your jobs. No, we're just a bunch of level-headed devs
having nice discussions on the internet. Anyways, a short while later after
that carve those layers into transistor structures. And both are critical to modern chip making. But inside this factory, among the tools, Intel has something even more unusual. The first commercial high-NA EUV machine. Each one cost about $380 million, weighs 180 tons, and must be shipped in multiple cargo flights. This is the most advanced lithography machine that exists. Intel was the first to get this machine, and it gives Intel something extremely valuable: lithography advantage. High-NA EUV can print features 1.7 times smaller than previous EUV systems. It enables up to 3 times higher transistor density. In simple terms, they might be able to fit nearly 3 times more devices into the same silicon area. And this entire factory was built to use that capability. And all of this extreme engineering exists for one reason: to build the most radical microchip technology ever attempted. Intel calls it 18A.
In the layer 2 video. Now we hit the massive physics problem nobody is talking about. Layer 3, the cooling. For 20 years, we cooled computers by blowing cold air on them. But these new AI chips are so powerful and dense that if you put them in a traditional data center, they don't just slow down, they melt. We have hit a massive thermal wall. The entire physical infrastructure of the internet has to be ripped apart and retrofitted with liquid cooling. There is one company acting as the general contractor for this massive overhaul. It's called Vertiv. Building a brand new AI data center takes years, but big tech cannot wait. They are forced to retrofit existing buildings right now, performing open heart surgery on live servers without ever turning the power off. This urgency creates a completely price-insensitive buyer. Vertiv even uses digital simulations to map the heat flow of a data center before they install a single pipe, making them an indispensable partner. They are the plumbers of the AI age, and we tear apart their massive multi-billion-dollar backlog in the Layer 3 video. But once you cool the chips, you have another massive bottleneck. Layer 4, the nervous system. You can buy all the NVIDIA brains in the world, but if they cannot talk to each other instantaneously at the speed of light, they sit idle. In the AI data center, latency is death. There is a silent war happening in Silicon Valley.
Data processing unit, or DPU. It sits inside the Vera Rubin compute trays, the Groq LPX trays, and the separate context memory and storage trays. The LPU in each tray handles the networking, the memory access, and the data controls so that the GPUs and the LPUs can focus on generating tokens. And on the storage side, Bluefield is the processor inside NVIDIA's new STX context memory racks. These racks keep long-term agent context on separate drives instead of on expensive GPU memory. Then it pulls the right data back into the GPUs right before it's needed. That's how Rubin keeps token speeds high, while cutting power costs for agents with long context windows by around 5x. Here's what that means in terms of performance at the rack level. Pairing a Vera Rubin rack with a Groq 3 LPX rack can generate up to 35 times the inference tokens per watt, and one STX context memory rack gives up to 5 times more tokens per second and 5 times better power efficiency for long context workloads. So when you add it all up, the Rubin GPUs, the Vera CPUs, the Groq 3 LPUs, and the Bluefield 4 DPUs, as well as the context memory and networking stack, you're looking at a complete overhaul of NVIDIA's hardware portfolio that data centers can mix and match. For example, data centers focused on training and big batch inference will mostly deploy Vera Rubin NVL72 racks. But for real-time agentic workloads, we're over
$150 billion. At a minimum, it may be $500 billion there. And then the model here looks at what's the annual cost savings for his captive opportunities, right? So if he's building the chips himself and he's putting them in Optimus and in Cybercabs, and then there's external revenue, and then there's an applied enterprise value. And, it's on the order of $1 trillion to multiple trillions. TSMC is valued at $1.7 trillion. And what we talked about last week was that Terafab is expected to produce on the order of 70% of TSMC's output. So yet we're layering on another multi-trillion-dollar opportunity. These numbers seem low to me. If you're really
Way
generating,
low.
yeah, if you're generating 50x, 50x the total output of AI chips on the planet,
This caused by you.
That is so dark. That is so dark. Let's take a look actually at this video from an interview that was done in Kentucky really recently. It was making the rounds. This is a Kentucky family being interviewed, I think this was the local news, about a data center. Let's roll it.
If it's my way, I'll stay and hold and feed a nation. 26 million doesn't mean anything.
Some people might find it hard to understand how Delcia Bear can turn away a $26 million offer to buy some of her land until you spend a little time with her walking the dirt road she grew up on and in the house her daddy built.
My grandfather and great-grandfather and a whole bunch of family has all lived here for years, paid taxes on it, fed a nation off of it.
So what do you say to the people who are in town that say, hey, this is going to bring jobs, this is going to bring economic prosperity?
I say they're a liar and the truth ain't in them. Left. Please don't let this happen to our county.
A community group called We Are Mason County is suing to try and slow down the process and learn who the organization is, the company is, behind the project.
I cannot get enough of these ladies.
They're so great.
And Jared Ochacha joins us now. This was such, there are a few stories that kind of are refreshing in a way that people will act in ways that you don't expect. $26 million. Were they offered that for all of their land or just part of it? Because they could have kept some of the land probably.
Right, so between Delcia and Ida, the mother and daughter, they own around 600 acres. And with more of their family, it's over 1,000. So they were offered this money for part of their land. And as you heard, they said no. So
VDRAC has assembled a collection of really high quality image comparisons. My biggest question after the DLSS 5 preview flopped though is just why, NVIDIA? They did not need to do this. No one was expecting GeForce announcements at GTC. You could have just focused on this instead. The new Vera CPU, an 88-core ARM-based behemoth, which has extremely high single-threaded performance and unrivaled performance per watt per Jensen, and he's of course very trustworthy. And despite this being designed for AI workloads, one must wonder what NVIDIA could do with it if they still cared about gaming. Single-threaded performance is, after all, a key spec for gaming performance, and if NVIDIA's info is true, Vera is 50% faster than any single x86 core in compilation, scripting, and compression, while also sporting 1.2 terabytes per second of bandwidth for LPDDR5X memory, and a new version of multithreading called spatial multithreading. The cores that power Vera are codenamed Olympus, and were it not for all that DLSS 5 stuff, this week I would only be lightly criticizing Jensen and team for this not being somehow magically available in desktop trim, despite all the barriers to making that happen that exist. Let's continue with an update on the hardware shortage though, and it's about damn time we had some good news, so brace yourselves for modest progress with the RAM shortage. While things are far from over, the initial shockwave seems to have passed, and at least in some areas, prices are moving in the right direction, down.
It's a crazy good deal, so if they're still offering it, I highly recommend signing up for it and accessing it for free. And then once you're inside, we can generate our starting video frame with Google's image generator, Nano Banana. Yes, because you see, here's the thing, right? Almost all AI videos are made these days by first creating a still image of the starting frame and then turning that image into a video, because this almost always creates the best result. So we'll be doing that too, and to do that, inside of Flow, just click to create a new project. Then come to the chat menu and select to create an image. You can choose between either landscape image or a portrait image if you're making a mobile video. Then choose how many variations of the image you want Nano Banana to make. Chances are you'll want to pick 4 to give yourself more choices. Then choose which image generator you want to use. You'll want to choose which image generator you want. Right now, I slightly prefer Nano Banana Pro, so I chose that. Then just come and type in whatever you want your starting frame to be. So I decided to generate a picture of a superhero floating in space because I do follow the Marvel Universe movies and TV shows, and I let Nano Banana do its magic. You can see it generated 4 images to pick from, but of course, if I want more, I can hover over any of these images and click the reuse prompt button and then just generate more images. I think it's definitely worth it to generate lots of images to choose from so that you can pick the one that suits the look and aesthetic that you want your video to look like. So I did this a bunch of times and I ended up having a lot.
Golfer hits a ball from left to right. It smoothly turns into a baseball midair and lands in a glove in one seamless motion. Then click Generate. Within a few seconds, you get a clean cinematic morph instead of a random jump. Next, use percentage-based expressions. Don't just say the character is sad or the character is tired. Control the emotional mix like sliders. For example, 60% sadness and 40% exhaustion. Instead of trusting the AI to guess the mood, tell it the exact blend you want. In the prompt, tell NanoBanana 2 to keep the exact same face, but change the expression to a specific emotional ratio, like 60% sadness and 40% exhaustion, while the character sits in a quiet cafe. NanoBanana 2 uses that instruction to blend those feelings on the character's face, so the result looks tired and emotional instead of like a stock image. Next, let's create an action scene from a static, dull image. This is about taking a flat, boring photo and turning it into something that feels like a shot from a movie. Upload your image into NanoBanana 2 and use a Wild West standoff prompt. Add gun flashes, smoke flying shells, dust saloons, and warm sunset light. As you can see, NanoBanana 2 keeps the same woman as the base and adds cinematic details, so the image suddenly feels like a real action scene. Now add camera movement to make it more cinematic. Go to Cinema Studio, click Video, switch to single shot, and upload the image. Choose a camera.
You need professional audio from a script, but the feature that really shows off what this integration can do is change voice. So VoiceOver handles text to speech, but change voice is where things get serious, because this one takes any video where someone is speaking and replaces the voice with a completely different one while keeping the lip sync perfectly matched to the new audio. I made a clip earlier inside Higgsfield of a man in a leather jacket standing in a warehouse, and I used one of the video models to generate the whole thing from a single prompt.
I told them this was a bad idea from the very beginning. Now we have exactly 12 hours to fix the mess they made before the entire system goes down for good.
The visuals came out great, moody lighting, shallow depth of field, and the character is looking straight at the camera like he's about to deliver a speech. But the voice that came with it just doesn't fit the mood of the scene, so I want to swap it out for something that actually matches.
Most AI video tools give you 6 seconds, maybe 10 if you're lucky. And everyone keeps saying the same thing. Just stitch clips together and edit in software. But here's what most people don't know. Grok can create full long-form videos, same characters, same look, same tiny details, perfectly consistent from start to finish. Just one workflow that most people completely miss. By the end of this video, you're gonna know exactly how to build videos any length. 30 seconds, 2 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever you need, all inside Grok. Let me show you how. First things first, we need a story. Open Grok and start a new chat. My prompt, create a 30-second short story featuring exactly 2 main characters to keep visual continuity. The setting is a dark forest in the evening or at night where a man and a woman move through the woods together. The tone should feel atmospheric and slightly mysterious, but not horror. Use simple, highly visual language that is easy to translate into video. Structure and guidelines. Length. The narrative should fit naturally within about 30